Hi guys, James here back with another video. It may not look like I'm sitting up on a couch, so I'm sitting on the floor, because I am sitting on the floor. I'm currently just loading PS3 games to see if they still work. Figured I'd multitask. Back with another video, and this one is Top 10 Canadian Films Part 3. I managed to get some more Canadian films together enough to make a list at least. Anyway, I figured I could do this one and this at the same time because some of these are taking much longer to load than ordinary. Anyway, so we will start with number 10. Number 10 is a film from 1999. It's called Johnny. This was originally one that came out, took it home. No, didn't take it home. Rented out, I believe, from Rogers back when they put out this series of indie films by this distribution company called Tribe, or The Tribe, which doesn't exist anymore. You can't see it on any of these movies. But they had one called Scalpers and Johnny and a few other ones. Anyway, I think it was just an Canadian indie film label. Anyway, so this film, Johnny, it's filmed by Carl Basai, Canadian filmmaker. He's made several films at this point. This is one of his earlier ones. And it stars Chris William Martin. And Chris William Martin, you probably know him to see him. He's done several Canadian films. He did a film with Ryan Reynolds called Chaos Theory. He did a Neil Blomkamp film called Demonic. The one you probably recognize him most was from the first season of Vampire Diaries. He played Zach Salvatore, Stefan and Damon's uncle, the guy who's basically living in their house, keeping up pretenses, keeping an eye on them, I guess. Anyway, that I would say that's his most mainstream role. And anyway, the film Johnny he plays the titular Johnny, and the film's a lot about a guy who on the Toronto streets has this group of squeegee kids that do his basically do his bidding, vie for his attention, and he's a very manipulative, seductive, not like a gang leader, almost like a cult leader, but has them doing like progressively dangerous, risque things on video, and just all around not a really good guy. But there is one scene in particular that I remember that always sticks out. It's the only thing I really remember from the movie, because it's been so long since I watched it. Probably like 24 years since I've seen it. There is a shot where he is visiting his home, where his parents are there, and you see him sitting on his bed, and he's got this, not a look of despair, just this odd, ordinary look that you'd see on an ordinary person, and he just like, it's almost like a questioning look, like he's wondering what he's doing, and you just see him, and he just goes and shakes his head, and he has just extreme focus, like he just got his game face on. And I thought it was a great scene, a great shot that involved like no dialogue whatsoever. Anyway, that's Johnny. That's number 10. Number 9, we have a film called Small Town Murder Songs. This is a film by Ed Gass Donnelly, another Canadian filmmaker. Well, of course, Canadian filmmaker. Another filmmaker who he has another film called, I have it right there, This Beautiful City, which I haven't watched yet. But this one stars Peter Stormare and Jill Hennessy, and sort of like a cop played by Peter Stormare in a small town near a Mennonite community, and a young exotic dancer is murdered, and it's the first murder that's ever occurred in this town or township ever. And a cop with anger management tendencies or anger management problems he's got a shady past, and he's got to investigate this. It's a pretty basic murder mystery story, but what I found interesting is Peter Stormare's character is sort of like an exile from the Mennonite community, and at one point he needs to get help from that same Mennonite community. So he goes to ask for help from his father, one of the people who exiled him from the community. And you see him standing out in a wooded area, middle of nowhere or something, and his father, the actor playing his father, walks backward into the shot and says something in, it's either German or Dutch, I can't remember. Just walks backward into the shot, has his back to Peter Stormare's character, says something, Peter says something back, it's a quick conversation, and he leaves, walks forward away from him. Never once looks at him. He can't look at him. and I think he says, thanks, Papa, or thanks, Father, thanks, Dad, or whatever. And it's I'd call it the most significant scene in the movie, in my opinion. But that is what stood out to me in the middle of just this standard murder mystery cop investigating a murder story. Anyway, so that's Small Town Murder Songs. It is from 2010. I recommend that one. Well, I recommend all of these, but it's because of that scene I very much recommend it. And yes, because this is another Top 10 Canadian films, yes, there are Adam McGowan films on this list, because it's Adam McGowan, he's a great filmmaker, he's a great Canadian filmmaker, and just cuz. It's my list. Okay, number 8 is a film from 1994, and it's called Exotica. And it is an Adam McGowan film. That's why I prefaced it with that. And it has Mia Kirshner starring as an exotic dancer. You've got Elias Koteas in there and Bruce Greenwood, both great Canadian actors, along with Mia Kirshner. And you've got Elias Koteas as the DJ of the strip club that Mia Kirshner's character works at. Bruce Greenwood is a patron. And it's sort of about Bruce Greenwood's character's daughter went missing and was kidnapped and murdered, and he sort of in like a downward spiral, and he visits the strip club because of Mia Kirshner's character, who is the ex-girlfriend of the DJ, and the DJ doesn't like Bruce Greenwood's character, but you don't know why. So it's a standard drama, but the strip club venue is an interesting aspect to the story, and it's just sort of like Dancing at the Blue Iguana. It's just a drama that's centered around a strip club, and that's what gives it a little bit of a twist there. Oh, it's a very well done movie. Early film from Adam McGowan. So that was number 8. Number 7, we have a film from 2013 called The Grand Seduction. Grand Seduction's a film starring Taylor Kitsch, Brendan Gleeson, and I believe it's a Nova Scotian community, Newfoundland fishing village that needs a local doctor. Their town needs a local doctor in order to keep, I believe, the local factory open. So they try and lure a doctor from a big city in like Toronto or BC or something, and sort of wine him and dine him in small Newfoundland town to get him to stay and take up residency there, so he'd be their new local doctor. And that's it for the premise or the plot. And it's just how the doctor, played by Taylor Kitsch, interacts with the townspeople, led by Brendan Gleeson, and just how it becomes endeared to the town. They really want him there, and they fall in love with him. He falls in love with them, and just how he learns to love the town and wants to stay. That's essentially it. Because you've also, who else do you have in there? Leanne Balaban, Gordon Pinzan, the late Gordon Pinzan, who died February of this year. Anyway, that is number 7. Number 6, we have a film from 2000 called Waydowntown, and this one. It takes place in Toronto. Doesn't really star anyone you'd recognize, except for the only one I really recognized in it. I mean, you've got Don McKellar in there, a Canadian actor and filmmaker, but it's Gordon Curie. It's the one guy, Fab Filippo, who you're not going to recognize the name, but I had seen him in an episode of, I believe it's Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And yeah, it's an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He was only in one episode, and I think when he showed up in this movie, it was not too long after I had seen him on it. That's it. Anyway, it says a group of young employees bet a month's salary, winner takes all, on who can last the longest without going outside. And the premise behind that is, in Toronto, there's a lot of underground shopping areas and tunnels and stuff. And one of them is called The Path. If you've been in the Toronto subway system, you'll see signs that say The Path, and they're like PATH in like different colors. And it's the underground mall system, basically. And I remember it didn't used to be that extensive, but one of the last times I was there, going to and from Ottawa, visiting my buddy Greg, I remember I was looking for, I don't know if I was looking for a food court or a Chinese food restaurant or something. And I just kept going through all these doors, past all these stores and restaurants and stuff like that. And I actually had to ask directions how to get back to Union Station, just because I had gone so far underground that I wasn't sure which way to get back. I probably could have gone up top onto the street and found my way back. But anyway, these young employees in an office building bet each other a month's salary who can spend the most time getting to and from their house, like spend the longest going to and from work and all over the place without ever having stepped foot outside. They stay underground in all these tunnels and stuff. And that's it. And then it's like, who's gonna last the longest, and who's gonna cheat, and who's gonna actually win, and all that stuff. And it's entertaining on that premise. There's not much more beyond that. It's just it's pretty good. It's worth it. It's worth it for the performances and to see how that plot plays out. Anyway, so that's number 6, Waydowntown. Number 5, we have a film from 2002, another Adam McGowan film called Ararat. And this one stars, I always forget his name. Well, you've got Eric Bogosian, Christopher Plummer, but mainly it's David Alpay, who, again, was in Vampire Diaries, but most recently, the first 2 seasons of the TV show From. He plays What is his name? Jade. Anyway, so this a guy gets caught going through customs with these film canisters, and he gets interrogated or questioned by customs because they think he's carrying something illegal, some contraband. And it's also the movie is split between present and past because it deals with the Armenian genocide. And because he's making a film about the Armenian genocide. It says, interrogated by a customs officer, a young man recounts how his life was changed during the making of a film about the Armenian genocide. So it bounces back and forth between events detailing the Armenian genocide and him being interrogated by customs. And it's all about whether or not he's telling the truth, that he is a filmmaker. He's got canisters full of film that cannot be exposed because customs wants him to open it. I think he's carrying like drugs or something in there. And that's essentially all the movie is, really. And it's very well acted by, so you've got Nuri Jose Cruz, a great French-Canadian actress. You've got Ursine Kanjian, I cannot always pronounce her name right. It is an actress, also Adam Agoyan's wife. But everyone does a great job. Oh, Elias Cotis is in there as well, again. Anyway, so this one is from, when did I say it was from? 2002. Yeah, so that's number 5, Ararat. Number 4, we have a film from 1998, film by Don McKellar. It was his directorial debut, I believe. Written and directed by Don McKellar. It's a film called Last Night. This is an interesting one because it's a end-of-the-world movie. It takes place in Toronto. And essentially, the world is going to come to an end. They're saying it over the news. Everyone is aware of it. It's the world is going to come to an end. Everyone's aware of it, but they don't say how it's going to come to an end. Just this day, this time, the world will end. That's it. And everyone is planning on how they're going to spend their last days. You have Sandra Oh, and I think it's Sandra Oh and Don McKellar essentially are going to kill themselves. And they end up meeting and spending time together and plan to kill themselves right before the world ends. But before that, they're meeting all these people throughout the movie. And I find the amusing part of the movie, they meet up with a character played by one of my favorite Canadian actors, Callum Keith Rennie. And he is trying to have every kind of sex possible with every kind of person possible. Every which way, every kind of person, whatever. And he's documenting this, and it's like he has this many people left, and this kind of... It's amusing how he still has this left to do, and this left to do, with this kind of person, and this kind of person, because he wants to do all of this before the world ends. So, you're not told much. It's just, I guess you're just supposed to go on the performances, on like what people are doing leading up to the world's end, and not focus on the end of the world itself. Anyway. So, that is number 4, Last Night. Number 3, the last Adam Agoyan film on this list. It is called Where the Truth Lies. And it is from 2005. This, I would say is a bigger budget Adam Agoyan film because it has... The production value is pretty big. You've got Kevin Bacon, Colin Firth, Alison Lohman, are the main actors in this one. Don McKellar's in there again. It looks more like a big Hollywood murder mystery, which it is, because you've got two guys that are a comedy act, Colin Firth and Kevin Bacon. And years ago, all of a sudden, their successful comedy bit, professional and personal relationship ended. And like a decade later, this journalist comes around, snooping around, wants to tell their story. And there was a murder that occurred that was unsolved. And it was this young girl that was involved with the two of them and ended up dead. And there was a shroud of mystery around them. And one of them was writing their autobiography, and there's controversy and stuff. So it's an interesting murder mystery, but also finding out how these two friends who were so close, how their relationship dissolved, and how their professional relationship dissolved. And it's a very, very well done movie, very well acted by Kevin Bacon and Colin Firth, who are at the forefront, along with Alison Lohman, who plays the journalist that's investigating the events. Anyway, so that was Where the Truth Lies, number 3. Number 2, we have a film from a film from 1991 by Bruce McDonald, and this is Highway 61. This one primarily stars Don McKellar and Valerie Bohagiar. I don't know if I can pronounce her name right. I'd only seen her in this movie, I believe, and I want to say she was hosting this. Is it Showtime? Hang on. Was I don't know. She was sort of like Showtime or Showcase. She was hosting screenings of movies and stuff on TV. Anyway, you got Don McKellar and her in this movie, as well as Earl Pascoe, who you may recognize from The Sweet Hereafter. He's another Canadian actor. But it's basically the guy has to take a road trip from Thunder Bay to New Orleans he's transporting a body in a coffin, and he meets up with this girl, and she joins him on this road trip. It's a road trip dramedy, essentially. And while they're going across the country transporting this body, you've also got Earl Pascoe's character, who claims to be the devil, I think he's in pursuit of them, but he's very funny because he's claiming to be the devil. He's just driving along, stops in a town to basically hustle this entire hall at bingo, leaves with all the prizes and insults a little girl. It's a quirky Canadian road trip drama comedy. It's very entertaining, and I think it was Bruce McDonald's second film. I think his first film was Roadkill, and then this one, Highway 61. He's the one who also did Dance Me Outside, and this movie is Broken, which I believe have already appeared on a couple of one or two of my lists already. Anyway, so that was number 2, Highway 61. Number 1 is a film from 2013. I have my best friend Bevan to credit for turning me on to this movie. I was aware of the title, but not of like what the movie was. But he watched it, and I watched it with him. It's called The Art of the Steal, and it's a Canadian heist movie. But you've got Kurt Russell, Jay Baruchel, Matt Dillon, and this movie is awesome. It's just one of those, all these criminals get together to pull off a big heist, and which one of them is going to be the one who turns traitor, turns on all of them, tries to get the money for themselves, and get all the rest of them killed or arrested. Because that's what happens with most heist movies. And I won't say who. I'm not throwing up the spoilers or anything, the spoiler alert or anything. This is just the basic premise of the film. And it's very entertaining, very well done. And it's sort of like Foolproof, that heist movie with Ryan Reynolds that was like Canadian film. At the time it was like the highest budgeted Canadian film with the highest production budget. And it was another one that was good enough that it could have been one of the Hollywood films made in the US. It was that well done and looked that good. And was that good. So, it's it even if it didn't look that good, it was still the acting and the writing were good enough that the film would have been successful. Anyway, so I think that is it for this one. So, like, comment, subscribe, suggestions, all are welcome. And, man, jeez, this is still going. Anyway, so, I'll see you next time. I hope you like this one. And, toodles.